So I recently posted a video about changing jobs, leaving, and at the very end, I hadn't made a final decision yet on whether I would go. Um, but shortly after, I did decide actually to go, and I informed my employer that I was leaving with immediate effect. Of course, I get challenged that, but they didn't. Um, and the response validated to me my decision to leave in the first place. Because if someone wants you, they will fight to keep you. They'll at least try on some level. So that said everything in itself. But also I wanted to just address a couple of things because in the video I anticipated life being quite uncomfortable and hard. Because I think when you leave something that's potentially a great opportunity in terms of money, you can't help but think you're going to have to take a drop in wages, a drop in salary. There's going to have to be adjustments to be made. And that's literally what I anticipated. Bear in mind, I think it's only Tuesday now. And that only happened yesterday. So I had already applied for like one job last week. And then today I thought I'll sort my CV out. I'll spruce it up, make it more updated. And then I kid you not, doesn't mean I'll get these jobs. I'm not saying I am getting these jobs, but what it's done is given me faith and hope that better is out there. The better is out there. At least two of I think we hide our salaries too much. Like where I say it was great money. It was great based on the industry. So I was on £28,000 a year. Obviously with overtime you can go further. The base rate was 26 when we started, but in February there's a pay rise, so we're on 28,000. But I found, even just today, jobs that potentially are going to be paying more than this one. So I've left one on Monday. I said I applied for one last week. I applied for something today, and within an hour, I kid you not, I haven't answered back, so I'm going to talk to them tomorrow. But within an hour, I got a phone call from the company involved, and they pay more than the one I've just left. They pay more than the one I just left, and there's sort of other perks with it as well, like a different shift pattern that I actually really want, because I don't like I said in my video, I don't like being so regimented where we lose so much time to jobs that we literally miss our life. Life passes us by. We literally get a weekend, and that's so quick. Whatever you do on a Saturday, you haven't got long left on a Sunday, and you're back at work. I find that grueling. So one of the jobs I've found, there's a few. I've got I think I've got about 4 or 5 in mind. 2 have got back. No, I don't remember if it's 2 or 3 have got back to me already. Bear in mind how quick this is all happening. Where was I going? I've gone off track. But the point really is that opportunities can come round, and each of the job has its own specific nuance to it. One is Monday to Thursday, 10-hour shifts. One is a normal Monday to Friday. I have to potentially work an hour extra each day compared to my previous job. But if it's a better working environment, I wouldn't mind doing an extra hour, so I can do that. Plus it's slightly more pay anyway a year. So there's that one. And then the other one I'm looking at is 4 on, 4 off. And I really like the idea of that. I haven't done it, but I like the idea of it. I think it's like 10 or 12 hour shifts. But of course, you do 4 days, then you've got 4 days off, 4 days off. And I absolutely love the idea of the concept of that. Because the way I see it is, if you're going to work in such strong blocks, it's like those 4 days you work. So when you come home, don't think you're going to come home and be productive. Forget that. Unnecessary pressure. Go work, you can still watch some tellies, have some downtime, but make it very, very light. Then go bed and go back to work. And then your 4 days, because you've got 4 days of quality time after. Think about that in itself. 4 dads off. If you work Monday to Friday, you only get 2 days. So that means every 4 days, you're getting 2 weeks worth of sort of weekend time off. And like I said, the whole point of me leaving was for integrity, find a community of people that actually appreciate me. So hopefully there'll be opportunities, because I was hoping there'll be opportunities at this one. It didn't happen. There was never opportunity for anyone. I like to think there's at least some sort of career progression. But yeah, I like the fact there's options now, and the options are not just limited don't limit me in terms of money. There's also another job, actually, because I'm not chasing money. I'll obviously it'll have a factor, it'll have a bearing, but it's not the overall factor. So as I found another job that's it's less pay. Well, it's not terrible pay, but it's less. But that's only Monday to Thursday, 10 hours. And I quite like that because obviously that means you definitely got your weekend off, but you've also got a Friday off. So 10 hours each day. So yeah, the options are there, but what I'm liking is the fact that I've left a position, of course, that had guaranteed a salary, but I wasn't happy. They took me for granted. The job was ridiculously. There's so many things I could say, and I don't want to get too negative at the minute. I'm actually thinking when something traumatic, not traumatic, yeah, traumatic. I'd say it's traumatic because broken promises, and it has been an incredible hell of a journey. I tell you, I'm actually thinking of writing a book on it all because I know there's a whole book's worth of content here. I'm considering it strongly. Again, I don't write books to attack people, but really, if I've got something to say, I kind of want to say it, just to help people, really. Because these people are going to be in my situation where they're going to feel tied down and felt hostage, like slaves to the system. And they don't realise if they're just brave enough to take themselves away from that, they free themselves, they give themselves liberation. And then you don't, until you open your eyes and you're in that situation, you don't even realise there's opportunities around you. There's opportunities everywhere. You just got to be open to the change and be committed to doing it. Like for me personally, the job I had was far too close to me anyway. I was getting fed up. It was like, by the time I got in the car, I was getting out of the car. But it was an awkward journey that I had to drive because of the main roads. But the ones I'm looking at will be a little bit of a commute, but I can listen to my music in the car, and I like driving anyway. So, and in fact, it's on the main roads rather than into the cities and stuff, you know. So it's not like you're just sitting in traffic jams. Again, I might not get any of these jobs, but what it's showing me is that they exist. And that shows me that the one I had isn't a one-off. It's not a one-of-a-kind special. It was an absolute train wreck of a mess. I'll explain briefly what the company was and why I'm not happy. We was promised certain things. We was promised certain hours, certain break times, the way the job would work. Everything changed. Everything changed. They started taking away our break time. Started making us our shifts longer than they should have been. You know, the working conditions kept changing. It's freezing cold in the winter. It's sweltering hot in the summer. But they don't care because they've got air conditioning in their offices. There's no health and safety. There's pallets that are dangerous as hell. But I've complained about so many times. You've got really heavy things stowed on these, and they're at incredible heights. And one of them pallets breaks, the whole lot will come down. And if someone's underneath that, it's not protected. And I always said I want to leave before something happens because I don't want to be there when that does. And I do strongly feel that something will happen one day because they don't listen. You know, they invest in, I always saw this as well, the investments go on stupid things that they think is a really good concept. But the ones of us working in the conditions, we know what's needed, and cheaper fundamental things should be done rather than these drastic changes. For instance, rather than fix the racking, get better quality pallets, make sure it's quality pallets, and have some sort of like heating system with fans, and you know, have it so it's functional, so then we can be more productive. Instead of all that, they're putting devices on the forklifts and things to try and make them stop when a pedestrian's nearby and stop accidents. Yet we've never had an accident. No one's had a situation where they've hit anybody or there's been anywhere even close to that happening. So it doesn't even make sense. So why invest in that when it's not even a problem? When you're going to have a pallet that's potentially going to kill someone one day, you know, it goes all beyond that. The whole building it's not fit for purpose. We had a meeting early in where external people would talk to us and ask us how we felt, and I just said this is never going to work. I said I'm just being honest. I can see I've worked in enough warehouses and enough environments like this to know what's great, what's functional, and what's a mess. And I said, this doesn't matter what you do with it. It can't work because it's too small. You know, it's just overcrowded on the outside. It's too small on the inside. They reckon it was purpose built. It was never purpose built. It was quite obvious that they've tried to accommodate it to fit the business. And considering it's supposed to be their landmark distribution centre, it's no more than a glorified shed. You know, if I was the chief executive walking around that, and you said to me, this is our landmark distribution center. It's going to it's going to fulfill the whole business to all the regional distribution centers. You'd think this is not good enough. Who decided this? And what's happened? What the people upstairs from the start, they've been removed, and the ones that have been left are still incompetent because they hired people that have not even worked in warehouses before. It's all military background people. So it's like, I don't understand that. How can you have people running a warehouse that haven't even worked in a warehouse? You know, they just seem to think they've been more intelligent because they've been elitist. You know, let's say you've been an officer in the army, all of a sudden they've got a higher opinion of themselves anyway. Everyone else is stupid. And yet they can't even see the fundamentals. You come up with an idea and a concept and they take credit for it. So in the end, you're just going, look, I've given you enough ideas, but I'm not going to keep giving you ideas anymore. I don't get paid for that. You know, I am just the help. And that's what it started to get to the point where people weren't interested in contributing anymore. As we left, but just before I left, actually, I gave them good ideas and they're implementing them because there was a lot of rubbish being left around. And I said, if you can put some sacks at the end of each aisle, then we can start putting rubbish in the sacks then, and that fixes it. And that's a good idea. But these are things that they don't even think about. That was only one of many that I've come up with. But it's just like some things just went further beyond me, you know, with lifting incredibly heavy things. Like this is cast iron stuff, and that was the whole day. We'd stop and talk in between because it's heavy as hell. You can't just work like that. We're not freaking robots. You can't. I'm not a slave. If we had normal products, like if you worked in like a Tesco's, for instance, and it was like crisps, sweets, biscuits, and Coke bottles, Coke cans, you can go fast because you're not always going to be lifting the Coke cans. You're not always going to be picking up the dog food, you know, not the massive rice packets. You're not going to have that all the time. You're going to be mixed in between light goods and heavy goods. Where I was working, it was just heavy goods. It was like 80-90% heavy. So the idea of going back and going, wait a minute, I don't want to do that anymore. You know, I don't want to do that anymore because I've complained. I wouldn't say complained, but I've said enough times it's not fair. Why is 3 or 4 of us always doing the heavy stuff? Other people are walking around with flasks. They're standing around talking, doing nothing, just watching us and observing us. They're not jumping in and helping. Why are we not rotated? It was always supposed to be a rotated bit of job. It wasn't supposed to be you're doing that, you're doing that, you're doing that. It was all supposed to be rotated and doing it fair because we can do everyone's jobs. But then everybody, the ones that had it cushy, started to act like their job's really hard. They're the only ones that can do it, and they started to make it all about them. And they did it. They've convinced themselves that they are more important, and they've convinced others of it. But the fundamentals start with us that are doing the heavy stuff. You know, I can't do that anymore. I just don't want to do that anymore. Like I said in the last video, I'm probably one of the fastest on the forklift, and I haven't had an accident. I haven't had a near miss. I'm just good on the forklifts. So if someone just gave me the forklift to drive for the day, I can get so much done. But my body cannot do the level of physicality that it needed. And they don't even look after you. There's no consideration of anything. You know, they take away our breaks. We've got less breaks. The tea break room isn't even a tea break room. It's like a little mini room that has lockers in it, had computers in it. Now it's got weird tables that don't even make sense, not even enough chairs. Meanwhile, upstairs, it's got a fancy kitchen. It's all air conditioning. It's got this beautiful office, comfy seats. We're just the afterthought, you know. Rather than show us any respect, they take our breaks. And then they say you've got to work an extra hour as well. And that's how they changed the policy that way. And like I say, it's sweating in the heat. You're getting really hot. It's heavy as hell. And rather than bring ice lollies in, giving you some drinks, or say take an extra break, or maybe finish half an hour early, or maybe come in early, finish earlier, you know, beat the heat. None of that. And then we have, because of the nature of the business, we have to do call-outs as well. So if it's your week, they could call you at any moment and multiple times. So you could get called out like 8 o'clock at night after you finish work, and then called again at 12 o'clock at night, and then maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. And that can happen any day, all of those 7 days. And that's compulsory. And that's that's another thing I used to hate. It's like, I don't want to do that. Why would I want to do that? You know, it's probably a lot more things than just these issues I have. But it's like, I can't. It reached a point in the summer. I mean, it was only like a few weeks before I left, I think, actually. I opened the back door, the emergency door, just to feel the wind, because it was so hot. I was sweating like crazy. It was unbearable because it's heavy enough as it is, and we're working, and it's hot, so there's no air. So I stood there and I just saw the road sign from the side. I just thought, oh, freedom. I don't care where them roads lead. I just want to go on one of them roads, get out of here. And effectively, that's what I've done. I've broke free. I've given myself that opportunity, really. It's the opportunity to start a new journey, a new path. I always just close the door firmly shut when I leave something, though. I don't sort of look back. I haven't definitely decided whether to write a book, but I'm tempted to, only because I know how much could be covered. And I think it's the fact that it's the level of lies at the beginning that we was told. We was told this isn't an Amazon. That's the whole motto. This is no Amazon. And then slowly but surely they're starting to try and turn it into an Amazon. So anyway, there's just a lot of issues with the way it was set out, really. And it wasn't even scanners. It was everything was like manual picking and things, manual. So there's issues all over the place because there's no accountability for anything. So if someone takes the wrong item or takes too many of something or moves it, the whole stock has like discrepancies. So when you're now trying to pick an item or find something, it's not there, so it slows the whole process down. But of course, they still want to get everything fulfilled, but yet no one wants to come and help us either. So and then you have to go and help other people. So before you know it, you're just a mule, You're just like the gopher. Need this, get that. You get it. You get it. You get it. You get it. And you've got people walking around with flasks. Come on, you can't have that. I can't. It just. And then then the people upstairs would have guests and stuff, and they'd take them on a tour, and it felt like we was in like an aquarium or a zoo. You know what I mean? We're like the zoo animals. Come and look at the morons. Anyway, I have integrity. I know my value, and if others can't see the value in me, then I walk away and go somewhere where people will value me. Because like I said, I'm really good on a forklift. I have huge experience. I've worked on Docklands. I've worked for huge distribution centres, various products from cold store to automated. I've got about 5 or 6 different forklifts. I mean, this is only the forklift side. I've wrote books. I've done a podcast. I've done my audio books. Can do web design. I'm really good on computers. So I mean, I have that side. But if we're going to just do the warehouse side, you give me a forklift and I can do the whole lot. It's just you have to. If I see that someone believes in me, then I do it. If I think someone thinks I'm not doing good enough, or they want more from me and they don't respect me, then I don't respect them. So then guess what? I'm not going to bother them, because that's why should I? But anyway, the whole point of this really was just to show that when one door closes, another door opens. And I even said before, is sometimes we have better things happen. Maybe not immediately, but sometimes we get better. I'm incredibly spiritual, so I don't like pushing it on people. It's why I don't say things. But I have so many signs in my daily life; it's unreal. Hard to explain. I don't even want to. But anyway, it's enough to make me leave situations, because I know that not half the time it's not even my choice. It's the universe pushing me, because it's leading me where I'm going. Often I believe most of the situations I find myself in is because it's my way of, I'm put in that situation so I can understand that situation. So then I can help other people who encounter similar to me. Then I move off and encounter something else. And eventually I'll be where I'm supposed to be. And then I'll be in a position where I'll be able to help people because I can relate to where they come from. Anyway, that's where that is. So I have high ambitions for the future. At the moment, I'm in this situation. And it's like, always take the next steps and make sure sort of you're preparing, you don't leave yourself, and don't be so proud not to do something. For instance, immediately I've applied for universal credit. I don't expect to be on universal credit. I expect to be one of these jobs or something else. Always have your bases covered, though. Don't leave yourself in a situation where you're so proud that you thought, I ain't going to need that. So, but no, if you're still in a situation where you haven't decided on something yet, or it hasn't quite worked out, at least you've got some money coming in, you've got your bills covered, you've got your basics. And when you've been working, you've paid in enough tax and national insurance anyway that you deserve some of it back. It's not a big deal. But again, some people get too proud or too, I think it's just too proud, really, too egocentric to do that. Always cover your bases. But yeah, that's what I've done. I've applied for, I've sorted my CV out, I've applied for jobs, set up my universal credit. I'm taking forward actions. I'm not someone that's just going to sit still and wait. But at the same time, I'm not putting overdue pressure on myself. You know, it's a period where I can relax, I can stop for a moment and just enjoy the tranquility before the next stage begins. But of course, the next stage is my choice. What do I choose for myself? Is it going to be, you know, like I said, I have so many options. You can go 100% follow the money, or you can balance the money with the working hours and the location, or you can just pick the location, or you can just pick the working hours. But we have so many options. Sometimes if we just go for the money, we'll find ourselves a bit miserable because the money wasn't enough to keep us happy after all. If the money was enough to keep me happy, I wouldn't have left. So I think it's worth reflecting upon that, because our happiness and mental well-being are just as important as the jobs we do and the money we earn. But yeah, anyway, the whole point is that when one door closes, another opens, and you don't realise how many options are out there until you really start looking.